part of Marg's kingdom. Tell me about Marg, she instructed. She motioned for her followers to gather around, and Belog realized they now numbered almost 2 dozen. They tended to be quiet, out of fear, or respect. Belog didn't care to speculate on which. He counted himself lucky that he was critical to Charter, and he wished to keep it that way. At worst, that would ensure he was the last one to be eaten by her. At best, he had a benefactor protector who was growing in intelligence, physical power, and magical knowledge by the day. He looked around, trying to determine which course through the brambles might suit them best. He knelt for a minute and felt his jacket bind across his back. It had been an odd affectation on Dahom's part to dress his archivists in black coats and grey trousers. Given the diversity of shapes among demons, it had made for some particularly odd-looking archivists at times. Still, it had made them instantly recognizable, as were his guardians, and enabled Belog to move freely through Dahom's realm. However, Child's generosity in feeding him was causing him to grow, a condition which used to be prevented by the careful oversight of the king's chief archivist. In Dahom's kingdom, you could be intelligent or powerful, but never both. Finally, Belog pointed and said, "I believe that way may be a wise choice." She looked at him with an odd expression, and then he heard a sound he had never heard from a young demon. Laughter. It was a different sort of laughter than that of the older demons, who laughed with a maniacal, joyless howl at the pain and destruction they caused, or at the crushing defeat of their enemies, or the lamentations and pleas for mercy from those about to be devoured. But this was something new. This was a laugh of amusement, not of another's pain. As he followed Child into the brambles, he thought, "What are you becoming?" They hit several dead ends, and on the 4th, Child's temper erupted, causing her to cast a ball of fire at the brambles that started a conflagration that had them running back the way they had come. Child collapsed a safe distance away and began to roar with laughter. The other demons looked from one to another and tried to mimic their death, but failed. "Can't let my temper get the better of me," she mused as she stood up. "You always had that problem." The man stopped. Where did that thought come from? Again, he was befuddled by this creature he was following, and by his own changes, which he understood no better than he understood hers. They left the forest of brambles and found themselves on a hillside looking down at an abandoned city with desolate land surrounding it. "Marg City," said Belog. "Again?" she demanded, and he knew what she asked. Marg was the greatest of the savage kings. He was a glutton and consumed all his enemies. Growing massively obese was a sign of his majesty. He savoured raw power, and his court was formed by trial, by combat, and by cunning. If a warrior killed his superior, he gained his friends and Marg's favour. So the king felt he was replacing a vassal with a stronger one. His court was always a place of terrible balance between loyalty in exchange for protection and the potential for betrayal. It made Marg especially vengeful and unforgiving. As Belog spoke, he marvelled that there was no need for him to explain these concepts. For to understand vengeance, you had to understand forgiveness. And forgiveness to any member of the people was an abstract concept. Even archivists struggled to grasp it. "Tell me again of the part about him leaving, and why." "There are only rules. It is said that somewhere in this city is a hall, and in that hall is a gate to the higher realms. Someone from those higher realms opened that gate years past, and Marg's army poured through, devouring everything in their path. It is said Mark went there and perished, or found another realm to rule, but no one really knows. As they started down a long road to the city, Bellard said, many kings of the savage lands, and even some companies of mad ones came here, seeking to take this for themselves. Yet they did not stay. Why? Asked the child. It is lifeless. She stopped. The rest of her entourage did so as well. She said, yes, I sense it. Sense it? She resumed, walking. It's a feeling. What causes it? It is something like the final death, I think, he said. At that, the usually silent demons who followed the child halted, some muttering, a few looking at her in abject fear. For a demon, there were two deaths. The one that occurred many times in the course of existence, where death returned their essence to the spawning pit. But then there was the final death, when all existence ceased, consumed in some fashion by a nameless horror. And that, above all else, was feared by a demon. From the time before time, there was only one way for a demon to die, the final death. And that was for something to prevent the energies from returning to the spawning pits. Then came the darkness, and now it was believed that to be touched by it was to die the final death. Certainly, no being alive from the spawning pits remembered confronting the darkness and returning. And the darkness had been growing at the heart of the realm for millennia. Only the oldest, most powerful demons even remembered any of the people who had once lived in the first kingdoms. And now the second kingdoms were being consumed as the darkness expanded. Kings and their vassal lords had fled. Some had conquered territory of the savage lands, or even the land of the mad ones. Others had found portals to other realms and warred there, conquering all before them, feasting on life that was not enough. Never enough. Stories were told, and no one knew what to believe. It was even said that hosts of demons raged across the skies of other realms, warring with mortal races. Child said to her group, follow, if you will, or return the way we came. But behind lies the darkness, and ahead is nearly the unknown. As if that was reassurance enough, the demons nodded, and when she moved forward, they followed. They entered the city as the sun was setting. To some demons, day and night were meaningless, since they possessed senses that allowed them to live nocturnally. Others, like the log, were at risk in the darkness, so the band had got into the habit of seeking shelter at night. Sleep was unknown to humankind, except as a means of relaxation, a rare event, or meditation, which was again rare for all but the artists. They entered a building that appeared at one time to have been a barracks or dormitory, although all the furniture had been destroyed by a series of violent struggles. The walls were darkly stained from blood spattered for countless years. They had just sat down to rest when the mad ones. Although little more than mindless animals, they were still among the most physically powerful of humankind. Given equal size, a mad one would overpower even the most skilled warrior of the Second Kingdom, unless he was fully armed and armored or possessed magic. They came out of the shadows as the sun set in the west, darker shapes against the grey light. They were massive and shorter, and two were four-legged, dog-like in their form, with massive heads on powerful necks and slavering fangs. The others were roughly man-shaped, but their heads were animal, ram, bull, lion, or bear, with exaggerated tusks and fangs, large horns, feathers, fur, or scales. Two of the child's followers were dead before they even knew enemies were upon them, their heads literally plucked from their necks. Child came to her feet, and without hesitation put out a hand and a wall of searing flames exploded out in a sweeping wave that caused half a dozen mad ones to burst into mystic sparks and vanish. Another four hesitated, then left her, perhaps thinking her magic exhausted. With a thrust of her hand, she shot out a bolt of energy that propelled one of the dog-like creatures through the air, slamming it so hard against the wall that its bones cracked. The other four-legged being launched itself at her, and she simply reached out, swung it around, and threw it hard against the opposite wall, breaking its back. The last two hesitated and died for their uncertainty. Child took one step forward, and with a slice of her talon slashed open both their throats, causing steaming blood to come. She turned to find the young male she had admired earlier upon the back of the last mad one, his fangs fastened deep in the bull-headed demon's neck. He howled in pain, but the young male persisted, and with a loud grunt of victory, finally bit through the thick muscle, and the mad one collapsed. Instantly, all the remaining demons in the child's party began to feast. Even Belog was overcome with the smell of blood and the release of energy. Child batted away some of her companions as she claimed her victim's heads. She had her brains, no matter how primitive the mind. Her hunger for knowledge was insatiable. Now everybody in the room, including their four comrades. When they were finished, Child studied them. Two were budding flies, not yet able to sustain long flight, but able to hover for a short time and scout ahead. 5 were men who were starting to become warriors. She smiled and thought keeping them loyal. She was maturing. Her head was rising daily. There were 5 worker male demons, 2 imps, and 4 immature females. The females would have to be controlled and developed carefully. Unlike the males, who as a rule became warriors or laborers, the females had a variety of roles. Perhaps one as a pleasure creature, a succubus, to amuse the males when she needed to have them diverted. And the other 3 could be many things. Mothers. She sat back. To Belloc she said, "Tell the males to stand guard at the doors